The reality is Gen Ys and Gen Z, the kind of group coming after them, this generation are going to face some of the most significant challenges on the planet ever. And our job is only and specifically to focus on what do they need to solve those challenges. What sort of education do they need? What sort of investment do they need? What sort of support and backing do they need? How does the entire community really get behind a generation of young people that are going to have to solve problems that are global problems, not just local problems? So the future of the planet, inequality, diversity, all these things really matter to young people. In fact, I actually see the opposite to what's put on the front pages of some of the daily newspapers. I actually see young people who are genuinely interested, and I mean young people from all walks of life that are genuinely interested in what's going on in the world, that genuinely care about each other and their community, and that genuinely want to kind of make change and make a difference in the world. And that is phenomenal. We need new approaches and new ideas to some of these really old problems that we've been living with.
I think young people face a bad rep. We are often called
narcissistic, apathetic,
entitled, and lazy.
Young people care a lot about their world, so them being stereotyped as narcissistic, apathetic millennials, it's actually so limiting. When they say that if you say something enough times to somebody, they begin to believe it, whether or not that thing is necessarily true. And I think that it's discouraging for young people to hear such a narrative about themselves.
We face a lot of stereotypes, which I think is true for every generation, but I think it's particularly kind of hateful at times against young people. And I think it's pretty false. I think more so that we just don't accept the current situation that we live in. I think that's why we can sometimes view politics in a different way to other people. So it kind of appears like we don't care about it, but we actually want a system that's better for more people.
So young Australians currently face being the first generation to have lower standards of living than their parents, probably since the Great Depression of the 1930s. They're a generation that is being locked out of the housing market. At the same time, the federal government has pretty much disconnected itself from young people. So young people no longer have a national youth peak body, a minister for youth. There is no national youth policy anymore. And young people have even had National Youth Week funding cut. So the federal government doesn't even want to celebrate the contributions of young Australians anymore. And young people are growing up in an age where information is ever present, where it's very difficult to switch off. And that's having an effect on young people's mental health. The other thing that young people now face is changed employment opportunities. In Australia, having to compete with people around the world. Add to that the fact that industries have changed and been disrupted by digital technology. So there are far fewer entry-level jobs now for young people. Young people are really having to find their way in a world that isn't giving them as many opportunities as their predecessors would have had.
We have this expectation in our society of how we're supposed to live our lives, and it's based on previous generations. And so it's this kind of cultural narrative, right, that says you go to school, you get good grades, you complete a degree, you work 9 to 5, you climb the ladder, you earn more money, you get a mortgage, you settle down, you have kids, etc., etc. I think that young people today aren't buying into that narrative, and in fact they're standing back and questioning whether that's the path that they want to go down. And I think it's that questioning and it's that hesitance that's often perceived as apathy. The reality is the world we're living in is very different and will continue to change rapidly.
I think our generation has been raised in a capitalist era where we live our lives feeling like we have to tick all these boxes so that we have a future, so that we have a stable income. And I feel that puts a lot of pressure on young people. And I think that that's one of the reasons that we have such high rates of anxiety as a generation. In order to be in the best position possible to create the change that you want to see, you need to be psychologically and emotionally okay as well. And if that means that you need to take a break to give yourself the permission to actually do that.
I think that our generation is living in a really unique time of history. We've seen a massive increase in technological advancements over the last couple of decades. And as a result, we're more connected than we've ever been before. The rise of globalization and the sort of social media age. And I think that that has the ability to connect and also to isolate. It's important that we use technology in a way that makes us feel like we are globally connected. The young people have fresh and unique perspectives on issues that affect all of us.
We dehumanize this generation of youth when we think of them as being merely young. Like the rest of the population, young people are diverse and complicated and complex and deserve to be treated as such. Young people know that the path to the 2030 agenda is one that has to be paved together. 82% of the young Australians I met with want to learn more about the UN in their classrooms. 84% of them care about current affairs happening outside of our country, and 70% of them follow along with the news every single day. Young people are informed and committed to creating a fairer and more inclusive society.
I think this generation are the most exciting generation in a long, long time, because the way they choose who they want to work for, the way they choose how they spend their money in the supermarket, they want it to go towards a good cause. They want to create a positive impact with what they do. I think compared with previous generations, this generation has probably been more fortunate, had better upbringings. It's different now to how it was, 40, 50 years ago growing up. They are more opinionated, forthcoming about what they believe and feel. But that is channeled into so many good things. The way they influence brands to operate in a more sort of ethical sense. I think the way they make companies, big organisations, exist beyond just making money for their shareholders. It's admirable, and I think they're going to do incredible things.
Last year, we had the benefit as an organization of finding out who our supporter base was, who our donor base are, who people are who participate in all of our programs by looking at some of our data. And we were blown away that the majority of people who interact with us as donors, who participate in Do It and Address, which is our biggest campaign, are between the ages of 15 and 24. That is unheard of. We were actually talking to somebody else who does a lot of data analysis for charities, and he said, I've never seen that group be bigger than the 65 plus group for other charities. And that's something that could have been a little bit scary for us because, of course, 15 to 24-year-olds don't necessarily have the same income to be able to participate in a charity. They don't have the same time necessarily. But fundamentally, we were so excited because it meant that as a charity, the way we're communicating is different than others out there. It means that we found a way of communicating in a way that young people want to get involved.
I think one of the biggest challenges to face social enterprises and not-for-profits broadly is a lack of funding. Luckily, in the age of the internet and technology, there's so many sort of cool things you can do to raise funding, like crowdfunding campaigns. Another big part of being a young person involved in this sector is when you are young, people don't tend to take you as seriously as maybe you wish they would. But I think ultimately you just need to back yourself and be as confident as you can in what you're doing, and then people will start to realize that you're serious about what you're doing.
Young people have a huge role to play, and globally, as we sit here, we're 25% of the population. That's a huge portion. I know we get written off as idealistic and dreamers, having your head in the clouds, but it's not a bad thing to aim big. Too often we just fall into patterns of what we've always done and just accept that as the norm because that's just how it is. And I think young people have so much potential to actually come in and challenge that status quo and say, actually, let's think about this, let's challenge this. And that sort of attitude is really how you get best practice.
Oaktree is the ultimate example of young people actually doing something. And I don't think it is an uncommon uncommon habit for young people to actually do something about the future. I think at Oaktree we are acutely aware that if we don't do something, we'll be inheriting consequences that might not be in favour of what we want to see in the world. Oaktree is an organisation completely run by young people, all 26 and under. We have over 200 volunteers across the country who are putting their heart and soul into issue that they're passionate about. If you look at the results of this organisation, I mean, we have 20-year-olds running multi-million-dollar campaigns that are engaging over 50,000 people to actually take action. We have 19-year-olds designing digital campaigns, engaging hundreds of thousands of young people to enroll to vote. We have 22-year-olds who are actually implementing education programming that's now turned into government reform in Cambodia. If you say young people are not doing something, come visit us and you'll find out for yourself.
VGen is the youth advocate movement of World Vision. Basically, World Vision is known for doing this amazing development work around the world, but the way that you really create change is by having change at a societal level. And young people have a really powerful part to play in changing the way that societies operate from the grassroots up. Young people are actually stepping into a world that's increasingly able to meet their basic needs. More people now have the chance to drink clean water, to go to a decent school, and to earn an income when they grow up. And so the question now is, how do we fight inequality? How do we fight poverty when it's not as simple as digging a well? And so what I see in young people, not just in Australia, but around the world, is these are the people who are going to be remaking the world now. Young people are inventing new ways to shape an economy, to shape their own life, to make a difference for their community. And I'm really inspired by the work that they're doing, but they need the resources to be able to back it up. We need to be helping these people to be starting businesses, to be getting a decent education. We need to give young people the tools that they need to reshape the societies that have already been brought out of the worst kinds of poverty into the societies of the future, which can be truly equal and where there's not going to be barriers for people living life in all its fullness.
The most powerful thing that can change the world for young people the world over, no matter who you are, no matter where you live, is education. And education itself really needs to change. We've got an education system that was built in the 19th and 20th century, where in the 21st century we are fast moving into an accelerated change in the world. Education is the gateway and the pathway to finding the attitude and spirit that you need to bring into the 21st century.
If I've learned anything this year, it's that our voices get stronger the more we listen, and we should all listen to young people. Less than 20% of the young people I spoke with this year feel like their opinions aren't taken seriously due to their age. The challenges before us loom large, but so too does the untapped potential of young people. And I'm confident with support, they will lead the way to a fair and just future where all of us are free and equal.
My first tip for anybody who wants to make change is to decide to make change. Power is the capacity to act, and every person, no matter what life stage they're in, no matter their resources, we can all make a decision that I will act, I will do something about a problem. And then you just figure out what it is that you have to do.
Don't undermine experience for skills or talent or value add. The fact that you are a young person in and of itself adds value because you think different. Our generation is a generation like no other, as will the next generation that comes through will be like no other. So actually think about how that adds value in this space.
Believe that you can do it, that you can actually make a change, that you can actually contribute, that is invaluable when you are facing a world that isn't always so encouraging, so pleasant, so kind to you and your history or your ideas. It's invaluable that you believe in yourself and that you commit to yourself, to give yourself that gift of having faith in yourself as well.
If we can think critically and question, is this right? Is this necessary? And what do I want to be doing in the choices we make in everyday life, or the big choices we make in terms of the path that we're pursuing, then you can find yourself in a situation where you are gaining real fulfillment.
Get educated about the problem that you're trying to solve and really work out how to have the biggest impact you can before you even get started, because there's no use reinventing the wheel or working towards a problem that doesn't exist or coming up with a solution that doesn't actually fit the problem that you're trying to solve.
I think that you would be crazy at some point of your life if you didn't work with children and young people, just because there is so much about possibility when you work with young people, and there's so much about creativity and innovation. Just learning from young people is phenomenal, and I get to work in a place every day where I work and learn from young people.
We are young.
We can make a difference.
We are the generation of change.
CEO of One Girl. We are an organization based here in Melbourne, but working in Sierra Leone and Uganda, and we're on a mission to educate 1 million girls across Africa.
I'm currently the CEO at Oaktree, and Oaktree is Australia's largest youth-run organisation.
I am working on a social enterprise. It's called Woman Girl.
And I run an organisation called Food Frontier, which is focused on accelerating groundbreaking protein innovations across the Asia Pacific.
I'm the founder of Crepes to Change. Well, it started as Crepes to Change, but now we've actually got 3 social enterprises. So we've got a food truck, Crepes to Change, we've got the coffee cart Changing Lives behind me, and we've also got Home One, which is a micro cafe launching in Brunswick in hopefully a month's time.
I'm the co-founder and managing director of Volley. Volley is a tech startup. We're a volunteering platform. With a difference, we're redesigning the volunteering process to be project-based, online, and with the ability for people to be able to carry out projects remotely.